No, let me see your warehouse. Let me see your storage unit, because you will be surprised what we pull out.
Sure.
And use, because it has a story, because it has meaning.
Welcome to Decorate Like a Design Boss, a podcast for design lovers who want to create beautiful spaces in their very own homes. My name is Kimberly Grigg, and I'm a professional interior designer who teaches design lovers like yourselves how to decorate. And when I say decorate, I mean decorate like a design boss. If you're ready to create a space that your family loves and your neighbors can't stop raving about, well, buckle up, honey, because it's time to design. So welcome to Decorate Like a Design Boss, Lauren of LouLou Interiors. And I know you have a last name, but I'm scared to say it because I'm afraid I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly. So share with me how you say your last name, and I think there's a cute story that goes with it.
So it's pronounced Riddei.
Riddei. That sounds so French.
It's Italian,
Oh,
actually.
is it?
My husband's family is Italian.
I'm coming to your house for dinner.
You know, I don't eat much Italian food.
Really?
No.
Oh, gosh. I would love to eat more, but I don't think my hips would like that too much.
So the story is actually when I married Ryan in 2017, he's a local. He's from Myrtle Beach. He's from the area. And it was pronounced Riddei when I met him. And I just was like, you know what? I get a lot of pushback when I try to say it. And I come to find out that Ryan's great uncle moved from Italy to California to become a country singer, and thought he would sell more albums if he changed his Italian last name to sound a little bit more country. So he changed it from Riddei to Riddei.
Oh, wow.
So when I married Ryan, I said, I think we got to go back.
Yes. We're not country singers. Wow. So that she is a true designer.
So Riddei,
she designed her own last name.
Riddle, Riddal.
I'm sure you get
any
it all.
and all are welcome. It's
sure
totally
you get
fine.
it all.
I really don't.
So, but
care.
the name of your firm is LouLou Interiors. So that's a whole nother name. So where did the LouLou part come?
So that was my nickname growing up. My middle name was Louise. Yep. And so when I got married, I changed it to my maiden name, Bass, but I was called LouLou.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, you got to check LouLou Interiors out. This girl, you can't see her because this is a podcast, but she's beautiful. She has this effervescent personality, and her design aesthetic is spot on. So I want to talk about that aesthetic a little bit. So what happened? Did you come out of the womb designing? Did you train your eye? Like, where'd you get this? And tell me what it's all about. Like, what is your design aesthetic?
So I would say my personal aesthetic is modern, yet soulful, and collected.
I can see that in your work. I definitely can see that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's really important in my new build projects to sprinkle in the old with furnishings, old art, vintage furniture. And then with my renovations, it's really important to bring in the modern and the new and the clean and the squeaky.
Great formula, great process. You do a lot of architectural work, but you're so young. And I kind of touched on this. You and I had an episode on my live show, which is called It's Time to Design, which airs every Thursday at 4:00 on Facebook and Instagram. And we touched on this a little bit, but I want my podcast audience to know a little bit about this soulful. And what I find in you is your old soul, because I wasn't able to take on new build projects until well into my career. I didn't understand the terminology. I didn't understand what it was all about, but you do, and you're so young. How did that happen?
Okay, so cool story that maybe your podcast audience doesn't know, but you were one of my professors.
Yes.
When I took a few design classes.
Yes.
In 2017, I had a pretty devastating job loss, and it just put me in, kind of a tailwind of what do I do with my life, right? I was expecting this certain career, and then when that didn't happen, I had to start over.
Oh, wow.
And so I had always kind of been into the creative field. I had just planned my wedding. I enjoyed that process so much, inviting people into a space that's thoughtful, that's meaningful, that's collaborative. And my sisters were like, why don't you go to design school? And I was like, never even considered that. And so that fall, I saw you taught a few classes, which was neat. And I just put myself fully into it. And I just learned as much as I could. I got an internship. I found a mentor, now a really good friend of mine. And I just put my heart and soul into it. And I mean, for the most part, self-taught outside of the amazing classes that I received around space planning. That was important, and Revit and AutoCAD. But I have been technically in school, at air quote, for many, many years because I'm just trying to learn this huge thing called design.
Sure. And as you know, the design industry has so many facets. Like I tell people it's comparable to brain surgery.
Yes.
And in fact, I had a business coach one time say to me, well, then do you charge like it's brain surgery? And I'm like, oh, busted.
Yeah.
But there are so many moving parts. But I say to my listener often, you can learn this. You have to have a passion. You have to have the get up and go about it. And you have to develop a practice, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I bought all the design books.
I still do.
Yeah,
I still do.
I don't think the learning ever stops, frankly.
For me, I think if it stopped, I would stop designing.
Right.
And I can't really imagine my life not designing something.
Right.
I spend a lot of time painting these days, which is also like design in so many ways. But for me, if I lost that passion to know more, because you cannot master this subject.
No way.
So, and I say to my listener, don't get discouraged. I mean, it happens to all of us. I also say, almost all of my projects go through the ugly duckling phase and only to come out a beautiful swan. But to me, when it gets to that, that's when the work really starts. And that's when the grit and the I got to get down and figure this out. And then something beautiful happens. And I can't explain it because it is a process. But sometimes people that listen to this podcast and follow our other shows and channels will say, I got discouraged, so I just stopped because it didn't turn out. It didn't look professional. It didn't look polished. Yet it can. So what are some things that you do? What kind of techniques and tools do you employ to make something look professional and polished and designerish?
That's a good question. Let me think about it. Yeah, I mean, I would say this was a big learning curve for me. I was in the nonprofit world.
Oh, wow.
Working directly with people, which has benefited my career a lot as a designer. But I think if there's a side of this industry that you feel weak in, then just go after it with all your heart. And for me,
advice.
Yeah, for me, it was the numbers and the scale and the proportion. I mean, I had the creativity, I had the love for people. And the intimacy of walking into someone's home is so valuable, and you really can't take that for granted. But I just had to learn as much as I could around space planning and measurements and numbers. I mean, you're so right. It's like rocket science sometimes. And then it changes every time the landscape changes, whether it's a new build or a renovation. You're not only learning the proper sconce height for this one home, but it changes with the next space. So.
Absolutely. And people say to me all the time, what are the rules?
Right.
And, there aren't that many rules in design. There's a couple that I follow. One is I like to walk into the foot of a bed. That's just kind of, to me, it's not just a rule, it's a good aesthetic. The room is more comfortable. Have I ever created a room that you didn't walk into the foot of the bed? Absolutely. Because I had to. And then you have to trick the eye in another way. But that one is one I follow. Do you have design rules that you follow?
I do.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I want to hear.
I mean, I have a lot that are kind of like my structure. So when I have structure, then I can thrive as a creative. So I have all of my rules around proper lighting, heights, islands, tables, pendants, I have all my measurements ready to go. And now it's second nature and I kind of just know. But early on, I had to write everything down.
Wow. And you know what I do when I hang lights? It's all by eyeball.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
And I have people that hang artwork for me that measure everything. I never measure. I'm like, not tap, tap, tap. Right. It's in the wall. Done.
Personal home or client's home?
Annie. That's why I'm never on the hanging picture team. I'm never on that team. And, but I know how to do it.
Right.
I almost can always get it right by the naked eye. But again, it's 29 years of doing it. And I think probably, 22 years ago, I might have maybe looked at my cheat sheets or something, but both ways are good. Both ways work. As long as you're accomplishing the end result, it is what it is. I also can repair a wall really easily.
Yeah. My husband, Ryan, said, Lauren, I hope you don't hang art in your clients' homes. And I said, no, I've got a team for that.
Yes.
Although I'm so tempted to hang art, no.
I don't
We need
enjoy,
a professional stud.
I do not enjoy hanging art. I don't. I like to see it in place, but I don't like to hang it. So, but that's just some of the things in design that you love and don't love or whatever. So tell me, what do you want to be known for? Because you're a young designer. So like when you look back 29 years from now, and what do you want to be known for? What kind of design vibe, design aesthetic do you want people to say, oh, Lauren?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think I always want my clients and my homeowners to feel cared for and to feel loved. I mean, it's such, like I have already said, it's an intimate thing to walk into someone's home. So I want all of my homeowners to know how grateful I am that they have asked me to help them elevate their space. So I definitely want to be known with just a spirit of collaboration in my designs, because I might suggest something and then the client says, oh my gosh, I have that art piece from my great grandmother. And I personally want to figure out how to make it work in their updated, elevated space. So it's a collaboration, and the most successful projects are that. So I would say, I think it's a little bit about releasing control as the designer.
We all struggle
all
with that
control
a little bit.
freaks, right?
A little bit.
But I think the world is becoming very collaborative between designer and client. And I think that's really beautiful.
I agree. And the way that you said that is really beautiful. I think sometimes people even shy away from hiring a designer because they're afraid. I don't think that people realize how important it is to us to get them and to get them right, and how important it is for every designer I know, every designer that I have interviewed. We all say the same thing. It's so intimate. I mean, I laughingly say to people, I'm going to be in your underwear drawer. Like, because I am going to know you inside and out. And that's part of the process. And make sure you like me. I need to make sure I like you. We need to bond. We need to have this experience, because it is an experience. It's one of the most intimate experiences I think you ever encounter. And if you're going it alone, that's okay too. I tell people when they're going it alone, and maybe you agree with this, but it's never a bad idea to consult with someone whose work you admire and whose aesthetic that you appreciate. So if you are going it alone, don't hesitate. Most all of us offer consult opportunities, and you don't have to do everything with me, or I'm sure you feel the same way. But if I consult with you, I can keep you from making a lot of mistakes. And I'm sure you're probably, because your business is based mostly on consultation. So tell me a little bit about how that works and how someone could, because I think you do virtual consultations.
I do virtual too.
So, okay.
Yeah. So I found during the pandemic that a lot of folks were ready to do renovations, but they were all over the country. So I found that I was getting inquiries from people not located here. And so that's when I just started offering virtual appointments, I love nothing more than walking into someone's home and they're about to paint a room and they say, Lauren, I don't know what to paint it. I need help. I want to be able to empower them with the right shade and undertone of paint color so that the money they're about to spend on the painter is worth its weight in gold. Ooh. And that is true for almost every application in a home. So yes, I do so many consultations where I'm helping people make single decisions, or I'm consulting for multiple year-long projects. Ooh. So, and that's a lot of where my new builds come from. I often will be in a relationship with a client for a year. I just exited a relationship after 2 years with a new build, because that's just how long, they take.
It takes, I tell people it's a year and a half to build and another year to decorate.
Exactly.
In this world. A while back, I could decorate in 3 months. But with the delays and the supply chain, it just doesn't happen that way anymore. And you and I had talked about that prior to this podcast, about how the supply chain, kind of hangs us up. And I'm sure you're finding that you're having to recreate work over and over. So am I. Like,
the bathroom tile's not in anymore.
Yes.
Okay, great. You know what we're going to do? We're going to pivot.
Yes.
Because I know 3 other tiles that I would love to put in the bathroom floor regardless.
Sure. So let's go back to that walking into an empty room. Like, let's sit there for a second, because I know that my listener often walks into an empty room and they're not sure what to do. Perhaps they bought a new house. Perhaps they're downsizing, upsizing, whatever. So how do you approach the empty room? What's the process like? What do you where do you start? What do you do?
Okay, that's a good question, because every designer has a different approach.
Sure.
Some people start with a rug. Some people start with artwork. I start with usually the overall thematic of the whole home. So I usually don't do a room totally different from the rest of the space. There's a golden thread. So whether it's a paint color that we've chosen as the principal, or whether it's a texture we've chosen, I'm going to incorporate it somewhere in that room. And so I'm going to think, okay, where does that start with? Is it the bed? Is it the wallpaper on the ceiling? Is it the shiplap that we're going to paint? Usually, and that's how I, as a creative, thrive with difference. So I think it depends on the client too, and where they're comfortable starting. And it depends on where we are in the process. So with a new build, I'm always going to start with usually the walls and the ceiling, because that's going in as we speak. And then we're going to start with the larger real estate purchases. So that would be the bed, that would be the rug. And then we're going to accessorize last.
Right. So how do you approach color? Like, do you use a lot of color in your work? Are you more neutral? Do you just insert? Tell me about that.
So personally, I'll speak for myself. I have pretty much an art gallery background in my home, but my furniture is pretty loud. So if I want my furniture to speak, whether it's vintage pieces or cool art, I need it to have a calm background. So usually I use calmer paint colors. And then I am a little bit louder with accessories and furniture.
Love that look. And I love seeing some of the things that you've done on your website. And I think that that's a very good description. So you've mentioned the word vintage, and I got to go there. So let's talk about this charity that you're involved in and this thrill of the hunt. We talked a little bit about it on my It's Time to Design live show, but I want to dive pretty deep into this and tell me how it started and what it is and what you do with it.
Okay, so the thrill of the hunt came about when Habitat for Humanity in Myrtle Beach, there's a habitat probably in York County as well. They approached Susan and I, to a good friend, Susan Seagroves, and I, to do a whatever we want as creatives and designers to basically bring people into the restore. And so we got creative. We came up with a digest that we put out on a monthly basis, highlighting various goods, decor, objects that we think have new life. And so that is put on Habitat's website monthly in a digital format. And then it's also in print with a local magazine in town as well.
Wow. And so you've kind of spent your whole life dumpster diving.
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah.
So tell me about that and kind of what's the process like when you go on the hunt?
Yeah. I do you ever walk into somewhere, Kimberly, and you start to get this like giddy panic?
Oh, yes.
Where there's just goods, beautiful things.
Market for me.
Good point. Market.
When I'm driving to High Point, like I start to race.
Yes.
And I'm like, and I've been to market like twice a year for 29 years.
Yes.
Like, really? I'm giddy, but I am. Like,
that
I get it. Yes.
Is really what I get every time I walk into a flea market, antique store, consignment store. I just get giddy because I have no idea what's on the other side.
Wow.
And I think that's part of the fun is you're not going to know if you're going to find the most amazing, rare piece of your life or if you're going to walk out empty-handed.
Yes.
But that's the thrill of it. You just don't know.
Sure. So tell people some things that you've done. You did a great show and tell on my live show, but we can describe some of these things or other things. Tell people what things you kind of scout out and what you've done with them. Give people some tips and ideas of what they can do when they wake up Saturday morning and decide to go on a hunt.
So I would say start with what you need. So I did a bathroom renovation not too long ago and I needed a vanity. But I am not going to go buy a bathroom vanity that everyone else has. As a designer, we have to be an oddball, unique. So I was like, I'm going to find an old furniture piece that I could put a really cool modern vessel sink on. So I looked and looked and looked, and finally I found a turn of the century nightstand. And I said, oh, that's perfect, except it wasn't tall enough.
Uh-oh.
So I had two options. I could either add little legs to it or get a really tall vessel bowl to make as the sink. And I went with a ladder and it kind of made up the difference between the 2 or 3 inches. But you start with what you need. Okay, I need this. And I'm going to add it to my wish list, also known as a unicorn list.
I love this unicorn list.
Right?
Yeah,
so it's this running list of what I might need in my home or my space. For me, it's my client spaces. Okay, I know my client needs a bench for their dining table. So when I go into that store, I'm always on the lookout and I'm always thinking about 100 things at once, the different projects I have, what I can use there, what I can use here. It's that fun panic.
Right. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Fun panic. Yeah, I get that.
It would derail a lot of people, but it is so fun for me.
Sure. I totally get that. So tell everybody about this cool light fixture that was probably a planter.
Yeah.
I love this. Like, this is like, I need to find 3 of them just alike for an island for a client.
Okay. It's just thinking outside the box. I think the thrill of the hunt is also the unexpected.
Sure.
You wouldn't expect a planter or a wastebasket. I'm not sure which one it was, but it had plastic in it that I cut out and then drilled a hole in it and had it hardwired to easily be put up as a pendant. But it is this rattan Palm Beach vibe.
So cool.
It's fun. It's quirky. It's weird. No one else will have it.
Love that.
So it's
Love
true,
everything
true
about
to
that.
who I am.
Of course.
But I think part of it is just what is the least expected use of this object.
Yeah. And I think if you can go in to some of these places with that as your premise, then it sort of focuses your mind to think like that. And trust me, you can get better and better and better at this.
Absolutely.
Like, sometimes I get a little rusty because for the longest, it was order, decorate, order, decorate, order, decorate. Well, with this supply chain thing, to me, it's been a lot of a silver lining. And as a matter of fact, you mentioned our friend Susan Seagroves. That's actually the foundation of our friendship, is that we used to antique together. And then as I got busier and busier, mine became more of an order, decorate, order, decorate. Well, now that we have this supply chain issue, I'm back to antiquing.
Absolutely.
I'm sourcing on eBay. I'm everywhere, and Etsy, all the spots, so that, and then I do get better and better now that I'm back into it about looking at things in a whole different way. And like, I found this little mini rug thing the other day, and it's like just looks like a little miniature rug, but I'm framing it. because the color is fabulous. Like it's a beautiful shade of green, and I don't know where it's going to go, but some client will benefit from it. And it's just unusual, and it's a different way to do things. So you brought in a bag, and I got to know, I want my listener to know the story of this bag because I love this.
I mean, the thing about how you're framing that rug, that's it. It has a story now.
Sure.
Whereas if you had just bought it at a retailer, it had no story, it had no history, it had no context. But how fun is that, that a client of yours will have a rug that you thought was so amazing? So that's true with this random beach bag, probably from the 80s, who knows where, but it's square in shape and it looks just like a frame to me. I literally just saw a picture frame. So I knew on my unicorn list, I had a few gaps to fill on my gallery wall in one of my bedrooms. And so when I saw this bag, it's pretty flush, it's pretty flat. I knew that it could fill one of the gaps in the gallery wall to add texture, to add dynamic dimension. I mean, that way it's not flat.
So clever. Plus, you can take it down and take it to the beach.
I have already done that.
I'm thinking I'm borrowing this idea for a condo I'm renovating because that's so clever, but it's also usable. Yeah. And the shape is magnificent. I'm sorry you can't see it, but it's square and it's the coolest thing. I really, really love it. So when should someone say no to something in a vintage store, antique store, junk store, Etsy, whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say my generation is minimalistic. Less is more, but also that less has to have some sort of story connected to it. So when you are secondhand hunting, does this piece, is it durable? Does it have a maker's mark? Does it have a stamp? Does it have a signature? Can you refinish it? Can you paint it without it flaking off in a short time from now, right? So are the bones good? And I think you can't change the bones of a furniture piece, but you can change the look with paint and sheen of paint and plaster and different unique finishes. So if the bones speak to you and it's real wood, that's a big deal too, is that's going to last you a while over MDF or some cheaper materials that we are seeing with fast fashion and fast furniture.
Yes. Things made long ago were so well made. And now everything is so production made. And now it's also production made in other countries when so much of the past was made right here in the United States, which is also very clever. And it makes me feel patriotic in so many ways. All right. So I kind of want to, this is a big question, but I want to transition to this big question because I think it's important. Living beautifully is not a necessity. It's not like water. It's not like the air that we breathe. Why is it important to live beautifully?
To live beautifully for me is an inner expression. It's who I'm created to be. And I think you can live beautifully really simply. It doesn't have to be pompous or expensive. But what is beautiful to you? Is it, I mean, you could decorate your car.
I might.
Yeah. I think
with a straw bag.
Yeah, that's right. I think to live beautifully is also, it's just how you approach creativity too. So for me, I want to revive the old stuff. I don't think it's done living its best life.
It's really well put.
Thank you.
Really well put. And I agree. Are there things that Lauren does that you do on lots of projects? It's kind of a signature or a hallmark that help people live more beautifully?
Yes. So I'm big on function too. So I think if it makes sense for that family, then then we can make it look beautiful. So I do have some signature modern selections in my builds and my renovations. I think I'm always going to lean more just on the lighter palette. I love a pastel. I mean, I'm just completely inspired by the coast of Florida and the coast of California. To me, it's this carefree, energetic living that I want to help translate for my clients. I mean, we are in a coastal town, but I would say I hope to encourage my clients too towards reusing and revamping what has been in their history, and to not have the first thought of, I need to throw it out. No, let me see your warehouse. Let me see your storage unit, because you will be surprised what we pull out.
Sure.
And use because it has a story, because it has meaning.
Absolutely.
And I like a little patina. I like wear and tear. I'm not always super squeaky clean.
Mm-hmm. I do as well. And don't you think it just makes everything more livable and more casual and carefree, and like you could put your feet up and really relax. And I think that's the hallmark of good design. Like you can put all the polish and all the stamps on everything, but if it doesn't live well, is it really that beautiful?
Or if it terrifies your guest.
Yeah, or your children, or your, right. I mean, it just, if you feel like you're walking in a museum, well, that is a beautiful look, I suppose. It's just not a very beautiful, livable look. And so do you have any pet peeves in design?
Yeah, I'm sure I've got some. Let me think about it. You go first.
I know, it's really, I have thought about pet peeves in design. Almost all of them escape me right now.
Yeah.
And it was just an off-the-wall question.
No, it's a good question.
But I do think that sometimes when I am working on something, sometimes people don't allow me to do my job. And that becomes a bit of a pet peeve. And because my job, I think, is to do you really, really well. And if I start getting all this pushback, then I get a little nervous that you're not going to be happy. And so I'm not able to give you my best creativity. And I think that's kind of nice. I think if I have a design pet peeve, it's not finishing the project. So I see people do this. They polka dot their homes. Like they have a finite budget, fine with the finite budget. Let's talk about it. So we got this finite budget, but then they'll buy something for this room, and then they'll go over here and buy something for this room, and then they'll buy something and so you've spent your entire budget and nothing is complete. And to me, it's almost disrespectful to the project. And I'm not saying you can't have the unicorn list, you can. But if you have that finite budget, I feel like your list should be for that space. What do you need for that space so that something looks complete so you can actually really enjoy it? Another pet peeve for me would be a room with no attention to the windows. Like, that's a biggie for me. And I do a lot of drapery. I believe in drapery. I think it really adds a polish. I like layering drapery. Nothing wrong in my book with plantation shutters and simple panels. Nothing wrong with a shade and simple panels. Sometimes nothing wrong with a simple shade. But when people get nervous about doing something to their windows because they think it's going to destroy the view or whatever, you're really actually decorating the wall beside the window and not the window itself. So for me, those are just a couple of things that I encounter that have kind of ended up being like a little pet peevish in the design world. So anyway, all right. So here's a big question. If you had a hashtag that you want to be known for, I sometimes say it this way. You're too young for me to say a hashtag on your tombstone, so I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say, if you had a hashtag that represented you, what would it say?
How long can this hashtag be?
Just like Instagram, you go for it.
The thing that comes to mind is no repeats. The reason why I say no repeats is I think what is really encouraging to me about the design world is that we get to design people's homes for them. and they don't have to copy their neighbor or design their home hoping their best friend loves it. Like, they get to design it for themselves and their families.
Great point. Really great point. I love that. I also love you. You're just precious. You're a breath of fresh air. It was so great to have you in and have you on this podcast. And if you didn't see It's Time to Design, you can go back through Facebook and Instagram and you can watch the repeats on that. Lauren is a wealth of information. She might be a young designer, but I'm telling you, she is an old spirit. She really is so soulful. She has all of it going on. So tell everyone where they can find you.
Okay, so just my regular Instagram is my name, Lauren Riddei, but you'll find a lot of my design work at LouLou Interiors. And I did recently open up a vintage shop where I'm selling curated and collected conversation pieces.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, so I see stuff all the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, someone needs this. It's interesting, it's odd, it's strange, it's cool, it's funky, it's fun.
So this is a physical location?
It's all online. Mostly it's on social media.
Okay.
So you will see it's called Shop LouLou Interiors.
Okay.
And it's eclectic, bespoke, vintage home decor.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, it's been wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me. And thank you, the listener, for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Decorate Like a Design Boss. If you want more info on how to decorate your space like a pro, visit KimberlyGriggDesigns.com. See you next week.